Hey, welcome to Journey to Truth podcast. Tonight we have on Venezia Fanous. She is what we call a targeted individual. We've had Desiree on before. She told her story, and this is a similar story. She believes she's being targeted for her intuitive abilities, her healing abilities. She is very gifted, and she is suffering from attacks from this technology, this known technology that isn't known to everybody, but it's known to these people who are targeted. And she's going to explain what this is and what is actually occurring right now to thousands, if not more, people around the globe. And one of the things that happens during when these people come forward with their story, because they all want to get their story out, is it becomes difficult for them. The technology that's being used actually has the ability to lock you up, to freeze you up, to stop you from talking, make you nervous, or whatever it might be. And we'll let Venezia explain that a little more. So we'll turn it over to you and let you tell your story.
Okay, thank you, Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you, Tyler and Aaron, for having me on your podcast. It is an honor and a blessing, and greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Yeah. So this has been, an ongoing situation for me, unfortunately. As far as what these directed energy weapons do, since everything is energy, and these are energetic weapons, these weapons can do almost anything. And if you can imagine it, it can do it. And that's, I don't want to induce fear among your audience, but I definitely want to draw awareness to what's happening to people all over the world, not just in the US, people in Brazil, people in South Africa, people in Germany. And there were a lot of people at Dimensions of Disclosure last weekend who were targeted, heavily targeted, and who were desperate and coming forward. And it's just one of these situations that's so very difficult for the majority of people to either understand or emotionally handle, because there is really nothing that anyone can really do except provide support and just listen to their story and be understanding. So the reason I'm coming forward is to tell my story, but the story is not, I'm not coming forward to tell my story because this is about me. I'm coming forward to tell my story because I want to help other people. I want to also inspire other people to come forward and draw awareness to the targeted individual situation in the entire community all over the globe. And, Aaron, I know that you were at Dimensions of Disclosure. I don't know whether or not you caught Sasha Stone's speech.
I missed it, actually. I'm going to rewatch it on the replay.
Yeah, so Sasha Stone...
I heard it was amazing, though, for multiple people, yeah.
Yeah, it was. And something that he said was that, in not so many words, he was also targeted
Really?
with the directed energy weapons, and he was burned because he was warned to get out of Lithuania, or to keep his mouth shut for 6 months and to get out of town, to get out of Lithuania. And this happened after he had some meeting with some council members there. And, please correct me if I don't have all the details, can't remember all the details, but he had pictures of the burns across his chest and his stomach and the swelling. And that happened in a hotel room in Scandinavia because of the directed energy weapons. So it can be incredibly scary, and they can do this to lots and lots of people. It's, I don't want to induce fear, but I want to get more people aware of what this is, what it can do, the dangers of it. And, if people are talking about the dangers of 5G, well, it's not just, on the scale of, it can cause, potential health effects long term. They can, these directed energy weapons, you know, with the microwaves, let me tell you, with the V2K, it can, you know, make somebody completely mad. Also with the remote neural monitoring, with the V2K and the directed energy weapons, you know, they've raped my mind, okay? And what does that mean? So my memories have been altered, okay? A lot of my memories have been altered. I have a lot of implanted memories. I have memories that I can no longer access anymore either. There's quite a bit that's gone on with they spend a lot of time focusing on the head area. And, you know, I might be getting a little bit off topic, but I guess I'm going straight into what the directed energy weapons have
No,
done.
it's
Okay.
good to know. Yeah.
Oh,
Keep going.
So, yeah, you know, it is kind of like, it's heavy stuff. Okay. It's really heavy stuff. The mind is completely programmable. So when you hear about these people, MKU, I don't want to say, you know, shadow banning, where you hear about these people who, quote, go crazy and go on a shooting spree, they're not entirely, these are not crazy people. They've been targeted, and they've been targeted for so long with such severity, and also with the programming that they get them to do pretty much anything.
Yeah, it's the voice of God technology that we all hear about.
Yeah.
Which
And
does exist, and a few other whistleblowers have come forward and talked about this exact technology, and even Corey Good says he's had used on him, and he's had to use it on other people as part of the program. So he's even touched this technology. So this isn't just bullshit. You know, a lot of people have had trouble understanding that this takes place.
Yeah,
it's totally not bullshit.
That's part of the way they keep it so hidden from the mass public, this information that this is going on, that people just assume they're crazy, or they're you know, whatever, when that kind of stuff happens, because so many people don't know anything about this information. So it's so great that people like you are coming forward. Obviously your, you know, personal experience, this stuff is happening to you, so it's very brave of you to do this, and we thank you so much for coming.
Yeah,
and thank you for having me and providing me with this opportunity and this platform.
You're very
you know, this has not been easy for me, clearly. You know, they call it no-touch torture. They use the word torture, okay? They use the word torture for a reason, because it's torture. It really is. And the mind will crack at some point. It's inevitable. And that's what they're going for. And so depending on what agenda that they have, you know, a lot of their agendas are either to get you to join forces with them, depending on your abilities, or to get you to kill yourself. As far as, you know, purely experimentation purposes, and then when you are either no longer needed, or they want to see how far they can push the human mind before somebody completely comes unglued. That's another reason. And, you know, other people are targeted for different reasons. I don't know how many programs are in effect. And, you know, more to the point of, you had mentioned thousands of people worldwide. I would beg to differ that that's probably a very conservative estimate. I would like to say possibly even hundreds of thousands of people, because there are people who don't even know what's happening to them, that they don't understand that this is technology being used against them. And then they go to the psych ward, or to, you know, traditional medical types of routes, traditional Western medicine, and get on antidepressants, antipsychotics, or what have you.
Yeah.
So
that's something that happens to a lot of whistleblowers too, because once they can make somebody appear crazy, it makes their testimony worthless. You know, they can just discredit everything they've said at that point.
Yeah, I've heard they can like program your brain too, because I remember David Wilcock saying Pete Peterson had they gave him this programming. Anytime he would start talking about things, he'd start getting tired and start falling asleep and start, or pain or different things like that. Yeah.
So, I can't, when I mention, and that's why I had, sent you that information, Tyler, before this interview. And who knows now, it seems to be that I'm speaking clearly, but I needed to give you that heads up just in case anything was to happen. They are increasing my heart rate a little bit, but it's not that bad for me to speak. I'm aware of it, and it is a little bit troublesome to breathe, but I'm gonna, keep going here. So more along your point, Aaron, okay, yes, the brain is absolutely programmable, and not just that, they can create what is like a caffeine field, and they also can create some type of sleep field too, where you get drowsy and you get dizzy and you want to fall asleep, but as soon as you stop talking about it, you're perfectly fine.
Really?
And so that,
Wow.
And then also, if you talk about certain things that they don't want you to talk about, and also when you try to access certain memories that they don't want you to access, they will, there will be pain and pressure in your head, or they will create like this terrible feeling in your body to create intense pain and nausea, and they can create pain anywhere in your body. Everything is energy. Your body is an energetic being. You are an energetic being, first and foremost. So they can target anywhere. Everything has a frequency. They just need to tap into it. I've so
can they actually make you sick, like a flu-like symptoms? Has that ever occurred?
They can make you sick. They can, I remember they even created styes on my eyes, believe it or not, before I would go and meet with, certain people. And I know this to be true because they've targeted other members of my family within the same household. And we all had styes at the same time, which, I don't share a pillow with anyone.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of unusual. And so with my situation with being so heavily targeted, I was pushed out of now 2 jobs. So I'm currently unemployed, and I'm living with family. And if not for my family to take me in, I would be homeless. And a lot of TIs are homeless.
Yeah.
And that's also another situation. When people look at homeless people and they treat them like the marginalized them as, some, an unsavory part of society. They don't even know what happened.
Like that's their own fault. They did something to deserve that. Yeah.
Right. Like they're drunk, they're a drug addict, and whatever it is.
Yeah.
But a lot of these people who are homeless, they've been somehow marginalized, and they are, a lot of them are targeted. They could have been targeted even before to create a homeless situation for them, or because of their homeless status, they've been targeted because most people, clearly no one seems to really care enough about this person, or else somebody would have taken this person in.
Or the homeless people or the technology is being tested on them, a new aspect.
Oh yeah.
I've been working in downtown St. Louis City for over a year now, and in construction, and I look at homeless people entirely differently now.
Mm-hmm.
And every single day, like clockwork, you see the ones talking to themselves. You see the ones, shouting and arguing with, seemingly no one.
It seems like that.
Yeah.
And, drinking, the whole list, I could go on and on. And I used to think exactly what you were talking about, Aaron. I used to think like, when I was ignorant, I used to think it was their fault they were in that position. Now I realize like this could be something.
Yeah, or they've just got mental issues,
Yeah.
They're just,
but all in the same area, all in the, it's funny if you think about it. There's too many people in a small circumference, in a small radius, where it's just like they're all gathered up, and I don't know.
So I just like to say that there have been, and I'm, not something I'm proud of, but, I also understand that this is not my fault at all. They will drive you to the point of exhaustion and use sleep deprivation as part of the tortured methods. So sleep deprivation is used as a torture method in every country all over the world because it is incredibly effective. Okay. You get somebody so exhausted and so tired, you know, then they become kind of like very, very easily programmable in that state because they don't have the energy to fight back, you know, for lack of a better way to say this. So, you know, there have been times where I've even discussed this with Desiree, and this has happened to her as well, where you'd be answering questions subliminally. These questions would be somehow implanted into your mind, and you're speaking. It seems like you're answering questions, but you don't know what you're being asked. And it's usually done because, you know, I don't know if they want like a truthful answer or they're doing the sleep deprivation for that reason. But yeah, there have been times where I've been talking to myself, and you know, because of my intuitive abilities too, I can feel energy and I can feel the presence. They can make it seem like there's another presence in the room even, and that you can be talking to that presence. That presence can be speaking to you subliminally. There you go. And
I have trouble saying that word too. Don't worry.
Yeah, I don't think that's the targeted part.
Yeah.
But it's definitely crazy making. You know, if you deprive someone of enough sleep and you hit them with, and also what they can do with these weapons is hit you with low vibration emotions, fear, panic, anxiety, hopelessness, despair. And a lot of this is done early on in the beginning before you even understand what's happening, because they want to see whether or not you're going to kill yourself. And they push you to that point. They also, with my eyes wide open, looking in the mirror, I can see an image of myself with a gun in my mouth, just flash, you know, with the same clothes that I'm wearing, because they can also see through my eyes, so they know what I'm wearing. And so they can mess with the visual cortex in such a way to implant images, and also to implant ideas and thoughts and everything, you name it. And so when I say that the brain is completely programmable, it's absolutely true. And others have discussed this as well. Like you said, David Wilcock with Pete Peterson and such, and Corey Good. And, you know, I've heard of this kind of stuff happening, but, you know, it's like, I'm not enlisted. I'm a civilian. I heard this kind of stuff happening to like super soldiers, but, you know, why me? You know, why would something like this be happening to me? And so they really had me looping on that for a really long time. Why? And then after I let go of the why and just accepted what was happening, you know, is like, I don't need to really know why. I just know that it's actually occurring. Then they had me looping on when did it begin? And I still don't have an answer to that, but I can tell you when I became aware of it.
Yeah, when was that? Yeah. So when did you first notice it? I was going to ask that next, actually.
So I'm a former Department of Defense. Here we go. Now, this is when they start messing with me, when I start saying this.
Really?
Yeah. Okay.
What kind of crystal are you holding?
This is black tourmaline.
All right.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yes. You need that.
Tap into it. And
We'll
you need to activate that crystal right now.
Yeah.
Activate. Actually, crystals, you can speak to crystals, so you can actually speak to it and receive an answer. So.
And they speak to you too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So here we go. We may need to cut back and forth, but here we go. Let's give it a shot. Let's see if we can get it on the first take. I'm a former Department of Defense employee, Department of Army Defense Contract Management Agency. That was the office that I worked in, the DCMA. I did defense contracting. And so, you know, it's basically a paper pushing type of job, okay? This is not like high level security clearance or anything. But I started that job August 20th, 2018. So it wasn't that long ago. But started noticing that I was being followed within 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks of my start date. And prior to that, within the first week, I had a meeting with the colonel, which was kind of strange but, you know, he wanted to, quote, meet with all new employees. And so, although I found it a little weird because, you know, keep in mind, my job is like a nothing job. Why does the colonel want to speak to me? But, you know, so I had a meeting with the colonel, and the colonel used to work in intelligence, okay, of all things, and was questioning me. So he was asking me what I did on my free time and these types of things. I'm sure I was already followed at that point. And you know, I decided to, you know, just be really truthful with, I decided to be really truthful with him because I figured he works in intelligence. He's going to know if I'm lying. So I didn't tell him I was an intuitive, but I did tell him that I did Reiki. I was a Reiki master. I worked with energy. And, you know, he kind of looked at me like I was insane, but that was perfectly fine. You know, it's not like I'm, you know, doing a striptease or something like that could be somewhat questionable, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, they knew, and I'm not sure at what point I was being followed. But keep in mind that, okay, and the reason I'm giving you all this backstory is to help you understand like why I believe that I was targeted. And then I was possibly even targeted even before then. And that's another story in itself. And, you know, it just, this is like ongoing. So as part of your employment to get a security clearance, and the type of clearance that I was applying for was called a secret clearance. Secret clearance isn't that high up, okay? It's not top secret. The guys with the, believe me, when you work at the DoD, the guys with the top secret clearance go around and they brag like, oh, we wipe our asses with the secret documents, haha, you know, because it's all military macho stuff.
Mhm.
Okay, so, you know, secret documents to them is like, it's nothing. So to get a secret clearance is no big deal. But you have to fill out this form called SF-26. It's standard form 26. And as part of this form, there are mental health questions, okay? And so back in 2005, when I was in law school up in Seattle, I was, you know, I didn't realize that I was psychic at this point, but I was hearing and seeing things and the whole bag, okay? I ended up, you know, having to check myself into the psych ward because things were getting so crazy that I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't focus on what I was doing or anything. So I ended up going to the psych ward in Seattle, and they ended up doctoring my documents too. And that's another story. I mean, like,
Really?
This is just like an entire like Pandora's box of opening stuff here, okay?
Mhm.
Like, I don't know how much information you want as far as the backstory, but like my documents were doctored up. And so keep in mind, I had to sign a HIPAA release. So now the government has my psych ward records, which, you know, in part says that I said that the television was speaking to me. I don't even watch television, okay? The television wasn't speaking to me because I don't even watch it. But they put that in my file.
Really?
And then, yeah, and then, you know, when you go into the psych ward, they ask you all of these kinds of crazy questions, whatever, and they also take a urine test, you know, to make sure that, you know, you're not on drugs or whatever.
Mm.
I tested positive for PCP, supposedly.
What?
Yeah, and I've never taken PCP, okay, and you might consider this prude, but I don't even know what PCP looks like. But, you know, I know like back in the 70s, angel dust was like a big thing and people used to jump off of buildings or something.
Mm.
But like, I don't know what it is. I just started cracking up when the doctor told me. I thought it was the funniest thing. But I didn't realize that it was all done on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, that they have their people there. And, you know, I didn't know any of this. So this goes into like, I don't know when my targeting began, okay? And that's, you know, part of the story, the backstory. So regardless, now the government has this information. And that makes me a perfect target because guess what? If the TV was talking to me and I'm in the psych ward, nobody's gonna believe me if I come out and speak anyway, right?
Exactly.
So just so you know, I'm not currently medicated at all. I was actually unknowingly psychic at the time when I was taking antidepressants and antipsychotics. which did a big number on my body because it was over a decade. So yeah, anyway, that's my backstory here. So, you know, moving back to when I first noticed that I was targeted, I started noticing the gang stalking first. Okay, the following and the gang stalking. The V2K didn't kick in until like late September, early October. And that was very clear when it turned on, because it just turned on. You know, all of a sudden, there are people speaking to me. And they take the sound clips from people's voices that I would work with. So this was something a little bit different than I've experienced in the past with what I believe to be like dark entities speaking to me. So needless to say, because of like the different kind of flavor here, that's kind of where I noticed that this was somehow manufactured, but I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't know anything about targeted individuals. So I was still going to work. I was still being followed. And also there was workplace mobbing that goes along with being a targeted individual. And I didn't know what that was either. I just thought I worked in a place that was like the Twilight Zone. But everybody is somehow in on it. One of the things with being targeted is that certain things are very compartmentalized. So even the people, the gang stalkers, and you know the people that you work with, even though they join in to do a little bit of the harassment, they may or may not completely understand the full, you know, the full spectrum of what's happening to you, you know, what they're doing to you. So anyway, yeah, so I started being followed about mid-September. I started noticing. I actually got into a car accident towards the end of September. I didn't realize that that could have been associated with the targeting because I didn't realize I was targeted then. And then the V2K kicked in right about that time too, end of September, early October of 2018. I stayed for about another month or so. I resigned on November 5th, 2018. And I thought it was, you know, I thought it was going to stop after I left. And it didn't. It didn't stop. I just, you know, when I was still there, I was getting incredibly ill. I was losing hair because of the stress. I was dropping weight. I was losing hair, and my heart rate. I actually would think that some nights I would have a heart attack. They would make sure that you don't sleep. The sleep deprivation was already kicking in, and they were, you know, kind of messing with my head. So I would be confused, or I couldn't think straight. So I couldn't even, you know, participate in the training that was part of my job. So I couldn't even do my job. They were very clearly pushing me out. And then the workplace mobbing where everybody is in on it, including my supervisor and all the higher levels. And, you know, it is my strong belief that the colonel either, you know, knew and turned a blind eye and a deaf ear, or it was, you know, he was an active, you know, he had helped create the situation. So, you know, I'm not entirely sure. I'm not going to name names because I don't have solid evidence to back my story up. And, you know, they could always come after me for slander. So
at what point did you understand, like, so it happened for so long, and then what information did you come into where you realized this technology existed? At what point did it go from what's happening to, oh my God, this is what's happening?
Yeah, so because, you know, I work with people in the metaphysical community, I had reached out to a healer friend of mine in tears, you know, because I was in, and this was after I resigned, and I figured at some point they were going to leave me alone. I knew who it was. I didn't know why, and I didn't know how they were doing it. I didn't know what it was called or anything like that. So I reached out to a fellow healer, and she had put me in touch with an intuitive on the East Coast who was familiar with this type of thing. And when I spoke to her, she said, it's something like MKU, but it's different. And so she told me, you're not going crazy. This is a thing that they do. she had also told me that at some point there is a possibility of it stopping, but there's, you know, you need to get to a certain point. I believe that I'm getting very close to that point. One of the things that she mentioned to me was that they will stop when it no longer bothers you.
Sure,
But
yeah. Fear loses control over you once you're not scared anymore. Yeah.
exactly. But here's the thing, okay? They inject emotions into you with the remote, with the directed energy weapons, okay? Then they implant thoughts. They hit you with low vibrational emotion, with fear, anxiety, sometimes even anger and rage, because they want you to lash out at the gang stalkers and possibly get arrested or get into the psych ward, both places where they have a lot of control over you, as you know, and where also they can deem you as not being sane, in not so many words, you know, to destroy your credibility if you were to come forward. And there's a lot more to this with, you know, how it began and all that, and they have a certain way that they ramp things up. But you know, as far as yeah, and I feel like I'm carrying on, but as far as like what it is, like how did I understand what was happening to me? After I spoke to this intuitive on the East Coast, I realized that, okay, I'm not going crazy, that this is a thing. I started researching MKU, and as far as, you know, my research with MKU, I came across the TI situation. So then I started looking deeper and deeper into it, and I noticed that there was somebody in South Africa who created a YouTube channel. I was watching a lot of his videos, and although his situation was somewhat different, a lot of it, you know, was totally on point. And, you know, this was me in complete disbelief, like, why is this happening to me? And it was kind of the same thing to him. Why was this happening to him? Excuse me. So that's how I came about it. I was doing some research. First, I was led to someone who told me that it was something similar to MKU. Then I started doing my research online. And then I came across that what this actually was. And then, you know, I
Sure.
guess that answers your question.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe I know a person personally this happened to. At the time, I had no idea what it was. It was the wildest thing, one of the wildest things that ever happened to me, with this guy just showing up in my life. I'd known him for years. I'm not going to go into all of it, but now that I look back on it, I'm like, oh my God, this is exactly what was happening to him. And I don't even know what happened to him. He actually, he claimed that he was being recruited to go to Mars, and he like literally said bye to me, and I've never even heard back. It's been like years, and no one even knows where he's at. He's not. There's no obituary on him. He's like a missing person now.
So he might have actually got taken to Mars.
Yeah, which reminds me of the Laura Eisenhower.
I was just gonna say Laura Eisenhower. They tried to get her. Yeah.
And he was even like this was like during the 2016 election or right around that time, and something was causing him to like make threats on the president and this and that. And I'm like, I knew this guy, so I was like, and everything that was happening to him was not normal. It wasn't characteristic. And the story,
out of character.
Yeah, out of character. I could get so deep into the story. It's fascinating. But anyway, I'm pretty sure that's what happened to him. And I noticed you smiled when I said recruited for Mars. Is that something that you've come across before?
They want to. It's recruitment. They either want you to off yourself, or they want to recruit you. So part of the gang stalking in the V2K is join us, and also you lose, and join us, and it's a choice. It's a choice. So they're basically telling me that this is going to, well, at least they're trying to convince me of that. This is going to continue until you join us. Yeah.
Like they're using it as like, well, like we can make this stop at any time if you do what we want. Like,
yeah.
pretty much.
Sure. Yeah. One of the things I noticed whenever he would be at my house is this was no joke. I was a witness to this. The vehicles would drive by the house with like blacked out license plates. And what's weird, I had one dog at the time, and she never barked at cars ever, but she would bark at these vehicles. And there was even Black Hawk helicopters that would fly over. And one time we were at a park. I met him at a park, and he was talking to me. He's like that guy over by the trees listening to us right now. I'm like, what guy? And I look over, and he's like, watch. And then right when we said it, he literally looked like he was adjusting an earpiece. It was unreal. I'm like, what am I in the middle of right now?
You'll see them on cell phones very often, like standing on street corners.
Yeah.
They want to induce fear and paranoia. And
like we're always watching you.
Yeah. And they are.
And they are, which is the kind of scary part of it. It's like, if you're targeted.
And they can also, they can also see through your eyes, so they know where you are. They know what you're looking at. And so they also know which gang stalkers you're looking at too.
That's so crazy that they can do that. I mean, that sounds like, a lot of this sounds like science fiction, I think, to a lot of people, like, oh, they can see through it, like, but that's just the level of technology that's been hidden from us, that they've had to for a while. And the level of secrecy that there is around that, it's insane. It's just unbelievable. Start doing your research and
it wouldn't seem like science fiction if we knew our true history.
Exactly. And that's
if we suppress this stuff, we would all understand this, and we wouldn't even be targeted right now. But
that's the problem. They put it out in movies and a lot of science fiction movies and other movies that they, they're always putting out disclosure of what's going on behind the scenes, but they put it out as oh, this is a fictional movie, like, isn't this cool? But it's fiction. But it's actually, most of it is stuff that's actually going on or has been going on. And in that way, they're also kind of telling you what they're doing without telling you.
It's part of the rules, as David Wilcock said, that they have to tell you what they're doing.
They have to tell you what they're doing, but they don't have to blatantly tell you. They don't have to say. They don't have to come out and directly say, "Hey, everyone, this is exactly what we're doing." But by them just putting it out there, they're still telling you. It's the same thing ultimately, but it's up to you to figure that out. It's up to each one of us to that.
Well, it's almost like passive permission in a way.
And it is right there in front of your face if you know what to look for now. Once you're aware, you're like, wow, it's everywhere.
Yeah. So as part of, as far as being targeted, that's the thing. It's happening all right in front of your face. Most people don't know what to look for. It's happening covertly, but it's happening in plain view. It's happening in plain sight. And they were all over the place at Dimensions of Disclosure, just so you know, Aaron. They were everywhere.
Really?
They were everywhere. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Who's they?
They, as far as the gang stalkers, the ones that they're I guess they're not really a quote gang. It's the organized stalking.
Sure.
It's contract stalking or organized stalking.
So when you say they were everywhere, they're like within the conference, like attending, or like?
Yes, they were in the hotel. They were attending the conference, and
would they be dressed like normal people, or really? So they
blend in.
Well, wow.
And they even infiltrate like certain groups. Like I was hanging out with a particular group, and so they find kind of like the lowest common denominator person, and they I'm not entirely sure how they get people on board. It could be blackmail, it could be money, it could be a whole bunch of things that they're possibly easily manipulated or whatever. But whatever it is, they tend to find someone in your group and the group of people that you're with to carry on their objective. And that's also to create paranoia and fear, and that you can't trust anyone. And so it's just, I was at the point where it's like, okay, I realize it's here. I know it's happening, and I'm just going to have to ignore it, because if I act like a crazy person, then, you know, how is that going to help me? So.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah. I always had suspicion that people would be infiltrating conferences. It only made sense because, like, some of these whistleblowers are revealing the deepest, darkest secrets of, you know, the entire planet, the entire galaxy.
Yeah.
And
I mean, of course, they're going to infiltrate the conferences. I mean, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And I've always had that thought, but for whatever reason with Dimensions, I guess it being a smaller conference, I never really expected it there, I think. And maybe it's happened at the last two, and I just didn't, you know, realize it. But maybe this year, since it's a little bit bigger, it was a little bit bigger this year. Maybe they wanted to definitely target it this year. Or maybe they target all of the conferences. You know, I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, Aaron. You said you didn't notice it at the first two, but you didn't notice it at this one either.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so like, who's to say? You know.
But they, like you said, they blend in really well. So unless you like actively see it happening and know what to look for, you probably won't even notice. Yeah.
A lot of these people tend to be active military or former military, or you know, and with some of these women, believe it or not, they even get friends and family members involved, it seems, or like girlfriends or whoever. And I'm not entirely 100% positive of that, but I do know, you know, the quote military type, because even though I wasn't very long at the DoD, there is a type, you know, and these people are also, they get them young, they brainwash them, and then they make them feel like they're part of some type of special group, that they're like on the in, you know, and so that's another thing. You know, whether or not you
reminds me of Tom DeLonge.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Tom DeLonge.
To the Stars Academy.
To the Stars Academy. They feed him all this information, make him seem like he's a super special person. This information is being disclosed to, well,
he's already a celebrity. He was a singer of a massive rock band called Blink-182, but they needed a face to the organization.
Yeah.
Oh, he's being manipulated for sure.
100%.
They're totally playing him. 100%.
Yeah. But they use like you said, like they build up your ego. Like, oh, you're this big deal. You're special. You're this and that.
Yeah.
And I could tell that was totally happening with him. And
if he's the singer of a rock band, chances are he's going to have an ego.
He has a big ego, exactly. So yeah.
And,
so they know.
I didn't mean to take away from you. It just reminded me of what's going on with him, what you were saying.
I just, you know, I couldn't remember who he was, but, you know, thank you for that, because I couldn't place it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, Blink-182, I remember now. Okay, all right, yeah.
So
please go ahead. I can't remember what we were talking about
now either.
You got derailed.
We're all drawing the blanks now. One of the things you were saying was that it's hard to get close to people because they, you know, everybody attacks you, right? Or they pay people to make you seem like you're crazy. And that was one of the things that guy kept telling me. He's like, he couldn't believe that they were allowing him to talk to me. That's what he kept telling me. And it didn't make any sense to me. He's like, I can't believe they're allowing me to get this close to you. He goes, you know, my family, everybody that he's already been separated from, and he was just baffled that he was allowed to talk to me. And I didn't know how to take that. So how would you explain that?
Yeah. So the first thing that they, you know, part of the program, whatever program it is, they realize that humans are social creatures. So what they do is they want to isolate you from friends and family. Okay. And so the reason they do this is so that the targeting and the weapons and whatever, they take a stronger effect on the victim, on the target, which were actually called contracts, by the way. We're called contracts. We're not even human. We're just called contracts. So their agenda is to neutralize the contract. Okay. So this like dehumanizes the person. So then it just becomes like business. And so that's also a way that they get people to kind of do their bidding for them. to kind of take the humanity out of it, that you're just a contract job. It's just business. But if you are to reach out to friends and family and tell them these amazing, ridiculous, sounding stories, they're going to think you're totally nuts, because no one knows like what these weapons are, what they can do. And it's meant to mimic paranoid schizophrenia on purpose.
Yeah.
They do it for a reason, because they want you to look insane, And so that's one of the things, is that why were they allowing him to speak with you? I'm not sure whether or not they were even monitoring you, Tyler, even before you were speaking with him, because that's what's happened to a lot of people that I know. They've been, they monitor and follow my friends and family. And so they could have been following you to determine whether or not you would be someone who would be susceptible to their manipulation, or whether or not they could possibly even bribe you to do something.
It was, which doesn't surprise me, because at that time I specifically remember when I would be on my phone, during my phone calls, it'd go beep, like it would just be this beep in my phone calls, almost like somebody was tapping in, which I had this gut feeling like my phone calls are being tapped, like not just like ringing setting off a notification when there's like a buzzword, but it sounded like people were listening in. It was the craziest experience.
Wow.
It was wild. And actually after that, right after that, I've told this story before, a presentation on the secret space program at this local meetup we have. And I was working on it for 3 months. The day on my way home from work that I was getting ready to, I became deathly ill, just like that, on the drive home. And I barely crawled in my front door, and I balled up on the floor. I started shaking. I couldn't understand what was going on. It was like flu-like symptoms. And
that's where you were asking.
Yeah, that's why I asked. And it was the worst I've ever been sick, and I fought through it. I made it. I did the presentation because I knew I was being attacked at that point, and I was not going to let it happen. And I did this whole thing sick. I lost my voice during it. I hardly even remember doing it, and I had to take off work like a week after that. I became so sick, so ill, and I just know. That's why I asked earlier. I was like, is that one of the things they could do? And then what I was getting ready to do was go explain to these people who Corey Good was and the whole secret space program and William
There
Compton.
you go.
And so I knew right off the bat that's what it was. And it wasn't long after this happened. So, man, I'm starting to connect a lot of dots now.
Yeah, but please don't, I just want to, remind everyone, and to remind your audience, that this is not meant to induce fear. Fear is what they want. Okay. So we don't want to do what they want. They want us to be fearful, and they want everyone to be scared. And also that feeds the dark forces too, that fear energy. So, we know what we're up against, and, I'm still going to speak, Tyler, you're still going to speak, Aaron, you're still going to speak. Yep. But, like what happened with Sasha Stone, with the burns and everything, things can get really ugly, and they can, pull out, do all of this insane stuff to try and get you to stop. But it's the truth tellers, the whistleblowers, whatever you want to call it. These are the people they go after. And then also people for experimentation purposes, and people that they're trying to recruit. Like the 100th monkey syndrome kind of person, I'm sure you've heard about that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And they go after light workers too. And so, that's another thing, because light workers are coming into power now. They're coming into their own power, I'll say, and to help, to actually step into their true soul's purpose at this particular juncture in time. Okay. And they know this. And we're here to raise the vibration of humanity, be the way showers, if you will, and help the masses. And they don't want that. They don't want that.
And it's what's beautiful about this information getting out. The upside of it is that now anybody who's listening can look at these people that are in their lives who are showing these behaviors. They can consider a different possibility, and they don't have to categorize them like they used to. So this is, it's essentially activating people to another level if they're resonating with any of this.
And more to your point, as far as, there is like that silver lining in the dark cloud here, that these weapons, yes, weapons, but because everything is energy and everything has a particular frequency, if they shoot people with the vibration of fear, paranoia, anxiety, depression, hopelessness, whatever, there's also, we live in a place of polarity, okay? There's also the potential to shoot people. They can also shoot people with this: joy, peace, love. Everything is a vibration, okay? So we can actually use these types of weapons, if the Alliance gets a hold of it, and all the good guys, and I'm not quite sure how it works.
I'm glad you went there. I was just going to ask you.
At that point, it becomes just technology instead of a weapon. We'll just turn it into, they can use this technology. They don't have to
it's just a tool that can be used for negative or positive. So yeah, the Alliance gets a hold of it. They can do it in the opposite direction and use it for good.
The one thing with where these weapons are supposedly located, Schreiber Air Force Base is the one that controls the satellites. This is an Air Force base. The Air Force is supposedly heavily infiltrated by the Illuminati.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm not quite sure how they would go about getting control of it, but anything is possible. And people can turn, if people can turn light to dark, they can turn dark to light. So if there are people out there who are listening to this and they're on the dark side, it's also not too late for you to clear your karma here. This is the time where there is redemption too. You can redeem yourself and come forward with the information that you have to help the Alliance, to help the ascension of humanity to more of a positive instead of a negative.
Yeah, and that is what's happening right now. So many people are reaching out to us now since we started this. It's becoming on a daily basis now.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
And I'm finding myself having conversations with these strangers who want to tell their story. And it's fascinating. I can't believe that we put ourselves in this position, but I feel so grateful to be able to help.
Yeah.
And even if we sit here and don't say a word and just let you tell your story, people are still tuning in now because we've created a platform. So
yeah,
I'm thankful for that.
And I'm thankful to both of you for creating this platform and being of service in this way, because this also, once again, not to induce fear, but it does put you on the radar. So it also kind of highlights you as, potential targets, if they choose to go there, which I'm hoping very much that they don't.
I just assumed I've been on a list for a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to me, I'm like, I'm already probably there.
It's all right.
Yeah.
Going back to the Air Force thing that you were talking about, they were, for some reason, whatever deal was made back in, I guess, the 30s, 40s, 50s, or whatever, because they were at the forefront of the UFO cover-up. They were the one covering it up, as not the Navy, not the Army. It was all coming from the Air Force, which makes sense because they're supposed to be patrolling the skies. But so they've always been involved in the Illuminati, or whatever you want to call it, the cabal,
deep state. Yeah.
Not to say that other branches aren't involved, but I think the Air Force is infiltrated the most, from what I understand. Yeah.
Yes, that's what
I've heard. All the three-letter agencies, and there could be good branches, I could say alliance branches now of these.
Yeah.
Apparently the NSA is supposedly mostly alliance controlled from what we've heard now. And that's why they had Snowden come out and try to attack the NSA and turn people against it, because it's alliance controlled now. And
that was the CIA that had Snowden come out.
Yeah, he was a CIA asset, and because the NSA is going to be used to take down the cabal, so they were like, oh no, we need to have this whistleblower come out to take down the NSA before they get to us, kind of thing.
They're crafty like that.
Yeah, they definitely are.
Oh,
I hear the Navy is mostly good guys, like alliance.
Yeah, I'd say so. I get that feeling.
At least at this point, yeah.
You know, interestingly, I don't know if you know the group Pax International, the one that Desiree Foley is affiliated with.
Yeah.
Okay. The main person, the head person, his name is Derek Robinson, and he's former Navy, and he's been targeted since 1983. If you can believe that.
Wow. Longer than I've been alive.
It's been happening since World War II, at least. And even the early 1900s, late 1800s, but the technology now, you know.
And here's the thing, like you said, this is old technology, but it seems like science fiction still in 21st century, but this is at least 50, 60 years old. Okay, maybe more. So keep that in mind. Like, think about it. Like, if it seems like science fiction now, can you imagine what it was like back then? You know? And so when you hear about people like checking themselves into the psych ward, and then they're like supposedly throwing themselves from the windows or the rooftops or whatever, someone in that was something that was not me. They were getting either pushed or thrown. Pushed off the buildings or thrown out the windows. And a lot of these people could have been whistleblowers, or people who knew too much or just weren't playing along, whatever. And anyway, they can give you a heart attack with these remote weapons too. So when you hear about people having heart attacks, but they didn't have a heart problem, and there's somebody from the NSA, Bill somebody or other, who supposedly had a heart attack while DOD was going on last weekend. Did you hear about that?
Yeah. He was actually supposed to be there, right? Or
be there.
Yeah.
He wasn't make it because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just read that today, actually.
Okay, and I might come across as like this sounding totally conspiracy theory, and maybe not completely based in fact or whatever. I don't know whether or not this person had a prior condition, but that is just so typical of something that they would do. Like what happened with Tyler before you were going to speak about Corey Good. This happened. He was supposed to go to DOD.
Yeah.
So like,
it's like,
even if you don't really believe, like, think about the timing. Like, what's going on with the timing here? So something to think about.
Well, I remember, I think it was on back when Jimmy Church was having on Corey Good and David Wilcock and that stuff. Corey was supposed to come on his show, and it was been advertised, and like last minute, Corey got sick and had to go to the hospital. And he had to cancel him as a speaker, and I forget who came in, whatever.
David Wilcock came on the last
David actually came in to fill, but that's a perfect example. It's like the timing of this stuff. It's like, oh, he's fine. 10 minutes before he gets to go on, he gets hit with something to where he has to go to the hospital.
It's like, it could be a natural thing, but it's
suspicious.
Suspicious.
Totally.
Coincidental. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
When you see it happen over and over, it's something there. Yeah.
So I want to hear about some of your experiences at Dimensions of Disclosure last weekend. I know we don't have to go too deep into it, but I wasn't able to make it, and I wanted to be there so bad. I was like, man, I belong there, but
it was amazing.
I had other priorities. So what were some of your favorite parts?
Well, I really enjoyed the speakers. With the gang stalking and such. As soon as I'm somewhere, I'm almost immediately surrounded. So I've come to accept and understand that that's going to happen anywhere I go. So, you know, that's one thing. But I really enjoyed watching David and Corey speak on Saturday night.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was amazing. And then they mentioned like, what, 2 to 2.5 years to freedom. And oh my God, I can't wait.
Yeah.
You know,
You're
I
like,
would very
finally.
much like for them to take out the satellites too, because that's like, you know, at least, you know, the satellites that are doing the harm. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they've supposedly, the deep state's lost almost all of their, you know, DWs, now chemtrails, it seems like, possibly, ability to create massive like earthquakes or storms or things to really like disrupt things that way, HARP, you know, stuff, because they've had all this stuff that they've been using as like, if you try to do anything, you know, they have total control seemingly, like they can just do whatever they want. And it's kind of like, you know, they've probably felt invincible, you know, for a while. And
they did.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and understandably, but the alliance has been working for a long time to get in there and start taking these guys out and start cleaning it out. And it seems they're finally getting there at the point where it's all ramping up and it's all right at the brink of finally
the breaking point.
And it's like they're right on the edge of just completely just collapsing and going away, because that's just where we're at. I mean, you can see it.
Well,
in the world, you know, just look around what's happening. They're pulling false flags left and right all the time because they're desperate, and they're kind of like flailing around desperately right now because
they don't even know how to react to this stuff. I think of that Hillary Clinton email that said, if he's elected, we'll all be hanging by nooses or something like that, talking about Trump. But you can feel the energy within that email. And I just feel like that's the mood, the attitude that they all have right now.
But a lot of they see the writing on the wall, most of them, I feel like, and they're
becoming angry.
They're either
desperate.
A lot of them I've heard have, like, because they've been given the choice, like, hey, come to join the good side, come join us, or turn to the light, whatever, or we're gonna have, you know, or it's over for you guys. And
yeah,
some of them have flipped, but a lot of them haven't. And then a lot of the ones that haven't are just kind of throwing each other. They're throwing each other under the bus, trying to save themselves. Now it's kind of like almost become every man for himself, just to save their own skin, essentially.
Yeah.
So on the dark side, there are no real loyalties. Okay, there aren't. There are no friends on the dark side. You know, I was trying to explain this to my nephew with Darth Vader, that there are no, like, Darth Vader doesn't have friends.
Yeah.
No.
I know that's kind of a strange
code of honor among criminals, basically. Yeah.
No, that's actually a great analogy, though. It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
I do think there's certain circumstances where some of the people who aren't quite up in the rankings, who were compartmentalized, maybe didn't even quite know what they were doing and discovered what they were a part of, they have a chance. They're the ones, I think Aaron's referring to, have the opportunity to make it out. But yeah, as far as the elites, the people at the top, no, they're not going to flip to the light side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no way.
But it's interesting because it's, from what I hear, like the reptilians and the entities that are kind of controlling the Earth cabal, you know, above them, have been mostly cleared out, if not all cleared out. And now, so they don't have the support that they used to have. They don't have the guidance and support that they used to have in that way. So they're all, just from that alone, they're like freaking out, like, oh my gosh, what do we do, you know?
And like a wounded animal in the corner, you know, it's going to do anything it can
Exactly.
as, you know, a last ditch effort. And so they're going to try, they're going to play, well, let me rephrase and reel that back in, because I understand the words have power and I don't want to give this energy. So what is part of their plan, okay, is to just kind of throw everything as part of like the kitchen sink and everything. They just throw everything.
Yeah.
No stops. Okay. So I'm not trying to speak that into existence,
Sure.
but that is the plan.
Mhm.
And are you guys familiar with the NASA Bluebeam project? Bluebeam?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like fake alien invasion or fake. Yeah.
Yeah. So
False
the
invasion.
Yeah.
the V2K, what is known as the voice of God, has a part to play in this NASA Bluebeam project. As far as they're going to put like a show on in the sky with like angels and gods or demons or whatever, make it seem it like very religious, and then, you know, so very appropriately named the voice of God, because that's what they're going to send to the masses.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to feel like this is some type of rapture or something.
Yeah.
And that, you know, trying to get them to believe in their false god. And when I read this, you know, I just started getting chills. And then I realized, okay, so this explains the experimentation part and then also, you know, as a weapon to keep people silent. But this type of, you know, the directed energy weapons, it's not just used for one thing. Okay, it's used for anything where they don't want evidence and they want to make the other person or the person in question appear not credible, crazy, or they want to off this person because this person has too much information, is somehow a threat, with whether they're you know, whistleblowers, 100th monkey, whatever. And you know, who knows, it could be a variety of things. But you know, if you think about this, okay, you know, going back to the thing, going back to your earlier statement, Tyler, about there are thousands of people worldwide. Okay, the reason I believe that is a very conservative number is this. Okay, if you were experimenting and testing something, wouldn't you want a very large and broad sample size going across the entire population, different ages, different races, whatever? You want a very large sample size, so there's like very little deviation. Like, you know, please correct me, it's been years since statistics class, okay? But there's something like a standard deviation or something. They want to get something like really, really precise and really accurate. And the way you do that, as far as an experimentation, is get a really broad sample size. So that's why I believe thousands of people worldwide, when you're talking about 7.5, possibly more, billion with a B, billion people.
It could be millions.
Thousands is not going to be.
It could be millions. I would, yeah, not doubt it at all.
Yeah, which it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And you're talking about the scenario in the sky about the, you know, the angels, demons, the ET invasion. We all know, anybody who's watched Cosmic Disclosure knows about the hologram technology. They can make something appear and even almost give it a physical feeling, you know. What this is already being rolled out to the public in football games, Super Bowl, sporting events. I know circuses, this one circus is using holographic animals now, but it's being rolled out in their circus, the Roman circus, you know. So they're
oh my God.
Yeah.
The people are getting used to seeing not this technology, the hologram technology, but it still looks like the Hollywood hologram. So they're telling you they have the technology, but they're only giving you like the cheap version of it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they have this other stuff that looks so real, so unbelievable. Even the most trained eye would have a hard time discerning. So it's another version of them, you know, telling you, hey, we have this technology and you're going to totally fall for this, you know.
I have a question. Do you think they're going to actually be able to pull that off, to actually do some big fake alien invasion or rapture event or something? Or do you think the technology is going to be, they're not going to have access to be able to do that? Or maybe they haven't, or maybe they've already lost access. Or do you think they're going to actually be able to like, do you think that's actually coming in the near future?
Yeah, and so this is why I was very careful with my word choice. I don't want to speak something into existence.
So
yes,
hell no.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The technology exists totally,
Yeah.
and like Tyler was saying, they're giving us like the cheap version. It's much more. It's the technology is much more advanced than what they're rolling out to the public.
It always,
and just like
it always.
Yeah. There you go. Like with the GPS, you know, it's like it kind of sends you in the right place, but it's kind of like a couple houses off or a building off or two.
It's kind of
Let me tell you what this directed energy weapons coming from the frickin', you know, where is that? Like outer space, atmosphere, you know, what stratosphere or whatever you want to call it, as far as like it is no longer on planet, okay? The satellites are orbiting the planet, okay?
Yeah.
And Mama Gaia does not like these satellites either. She just doesn't. But keep this in mind. They can send those beams within 1 centimeter. Within accuracy within 1 centimeter.
Wow.
Which is as accurate as you need to be, you know, unless you're trying to hit a mosquito.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which are probably programmed also.
Yeah.
You know, and it's funny that you mentioned that, Tyler, because I was coming across information about like the CIA using these like quote dragonflies, but they're like spy dragonflies. And this stuff has been around since the 70s.
I've actually heard about that as well.
You've heard?
Well, I don't know about dragonflies, but I've heard about like insects being like little robot like spies that they're using. Yeah.
Nanotechnology. I mean, it exists. That's something it's not even that far-fetched anymore as far as the mainstream would be concerned. Yeah, but and the mosquito thing though, I truly believe mosquitoes were weaponized as far as being given diseases like the West Nile or the Zika virus.
Yep.
Which actually what was the name of that project? I can't remember it. I'm drawing a blank. But there's already information out there that this has taken place, you know.
Yeah. But going back to my previous question, the reason I asked that is because you know, seemingly the Alliance is winning this war, and the Alliance wants to make this transition as smooth and as like least amount of deaths and chaos as possible, right? Like as smooth as possible. Like they don't. That's the reason it's taking so long, because really they could have done it by now, but it would have like maybe all of society would have collapsed, and a lot of people would have died, and it would have been really, really bad. And that's what they're trying to avoid, you know, at all costs. So to me, it only makes sense that, but then it gets down to, well, is the Cabal going to be able to use that before the Alliance is able to get it out of their hands, or have they already gotten it out, and that's why we haven't seen it yet? Because you know they have to have seen the writing on the wall by now, right? Like I just can't see how they couldn't by now. So
the light is absolutely winning.
Absolutely.
And
it's
the
like
light
they would have already
win.
done that by now as a desperation move if they still are able to do that, you know. That's my thought on it, at least.
And that's a really good point that you bring up, Aaron. You know, why are they waiting if they have it and they can you know, so that's a really good point. You know, my take on it as, you know, as being a light worker, like they can't take us out. They just can't. The best that they could do is try to get us to kill ourselves. And believe me, they've tried. They've tried to get me to kill myself, and they almost succeeded, but they're not going to get me to kill myself. So they can kiss it. It's not happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, the light is winning, and the light is meant to win. It is in scripture, and it's been prophesized, and there is no other way that this can go down, really. So, you know, that's a very good point, Aaron, that you bring up. Absolutely.
It's almost like all they can do is just delay. They can just delay it, but that's it. Yeah. And at a certain point, they can't delay it. They can't, you know, they can only delay it so long, and then their time's up. So
I like how you said earlier, it's like having a wounded animal trapped in a corner or whatever. And the first image I got was, you ever tried to pick up a cat that doesn't want to be held and try to hold on to it? That's exactly what we're seeing right now on a massive scale. And to answer your question, Aaron, about like, do you think they've or they could have done it already, but the reason why they haven't is because I remember Corey talking about the deep state sleepers. They have people out there everywhere they can activate. So if they were to do this on a massive scale and expose all this stuff, they still have the technology to awaken these sleepers to start riots and just go out with machine guns and start shooting people and killing people. And what would that get us? Where would that get us? That, you know, how many people do they have sleeping, ready to be activated? And that's a scary thought, because your neighbor could be that person.
Yeah, because, well, the thing is, we're still seeing these false flags happen with these individuals that, like what you described earlier, are, you know, they're being mind controlled. And so they seem to have still some degree of control over some of this stuff, at least. But I'm wondering if maybe the big stuff like that, like a false alien invasion or rapture event or something like on a massive scale like that, maybe the Alliance tried to make sure they got that out of their hands.
I think so.
First, kind of, so they couldn't pull it, because if you think about it, that would make sense, because that's such a huge card that they would be able to play that they would probably want to make sure they get that first or early on. So it seems like maybe now they just have these little things that they can still do, like, oh, they still have some programmed individuals that they can do false flags with, and a couple other things, but nothing on a massive scale like they would like to do, maybe. So
that's not going to happen. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So it's not going to happen. But, you know, to further along that point, it was their plan. You see how I'm choosing my words here. It was their plan to activate these sleeper cells, and also to cause riots, and then to where the population would beg for martial law. And then, and so then it becomes a situation that is incredibly Illuminati-esque, okay? They create the problem, they provide us with the solution, and we give them more of our power. So that's
problem reaction solution.
That's incredibly Illuminati.
Well, let's end this on a high note. So so is there any last words you would like to leave us with before we go ahead and wrap this up, as far as, you know, a message to other TIs out there, which I know you've already done earlier, but let's change gears here.
You know, one of the reasons I'm coming forward is to share my story, but it's also to inspire other targeted individuals to come forward with their story. Because the more of us that come forward, the more legitimate this sounds, and the more people may listen to actually, you know, what the entire collective, where the overlap is. You know, they may not believe one particular person, but where there is enough overlap with people who've never met, who are experiencing very similar, if not exactly the same types of experiences, it comes to a point where it cannot just be. You know, these people like me, clearly, even though I did spend time in the psych ward because I didn't know that I was psychic at that point, even though, you know, it does sound somewhat crazy. Okay, it does. I know. And that was part of the fear that I had with coming forward, was being labeled. It was being labeled as crazy. Well, I had to get over that, because there's a bigger mission here, and it's not something like, oh, you know, you're crazy. I just have to get over that. People are going to call me whatever they want to call me. It has nothing to do with me. So, you know, if you have a fear of coming forward because you fear that people are going to call you crazy, just know that it sounds absolutely insane for a reason. And there are plenty of us who've come forward, and there are lots of stories like this. You're not alone. And please feel free to also reach out to communities like PAX International. And also, please feel free to even reach out to me directly and personally. Hopefully you can come forward with your story, or we can, you know, at least provide you with support as far as this, you know, going through this torture. It is torture. It is called no touch torture for a reason.
Well,
so
we'll put all your contact information in the description on YouTube as well. But do you want to tell them a quick, easy way that they could get a hold of you right now if they're listening?
You can reach out to me on Facebook, on Instagram, on my website. Can send me messages there, direct messages. I will do my best to respond. There, you know, I've already received some very interesting messages from, you know, online organized stalking, which of course, you know, you eventually, you know, have to, you figure out and just completely disregard. But please feel free to reach out to me, to reach out to PAX International. You are not alone. There are plenty of people going through the same thing. And I know that part of the program is isolation. So please reach out for support from the community, from our community, because this is one of the only ways that we're going to be able to get through this. And to also provide awareness to the greater population who probably has no idea that any of this is even possible.
Yes, and that's why this is so huge for you to come on here and do this. And it takes courage to come up here and talk about this stuff, because you're putting yourself in the spotlight. So thank you again for coming on. This has been great. It's fascinating. I think we learned a lot, and we're spreading awareness with all of this. So
thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Aaron.
Absolutely.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
So with that, I guess we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you again, and have a good night. Oh, you too. You too, Aaron. Have a good night.
Oh, thanks. You too. You have a good night too. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.